In 2008, on Mother's Day of 2008, I was blown up by an IED working for SOCOM as an attachment, and I landed at Wall Street for 15 months. For 15 months, my captain and I got blown up together, and so I felt like it was still my duty as his RTO.
The captain stepped on the IED, not HD, just so you all have
Yeah, and so I lost my right eye, and I have a titanium rod. It took me 15 months to walk and speak and do all the things you guys are doing in the hospital right now. But the biggest thing during that time, the 15 months, that I think was killing my soul was, what is my next purpose? Because my ultimate goal was, when I enlisted into the Army after graduating from college, was I wanted to be a Special Ops Ranger. I had just gotten approved to put my pre-Ranger packet in. I was excited about that, but we were on that 15-month deployment, and I got blown up at 10 months. And so when I got to Walter Reed, I asked 3 different generals. One of them was my division commander, General Oates, and he said, well, son, you can't go back. There's no way. There's no way you're gonna be able to go back and do your job. I was heartbroken, and then I tried to stifle the medical general that came by to visit every so often. And I said, hey, sir, I'm feeling pretty good. Would you send me back to my unit? Please put in the order down, and I'll be ready to go. I'll be out of your hair in no time. He said, no, son, you can't go at all. And there was a 3rd general that came. I didn't even know who he was, but I begged and pleaded, even showed him some tears. I'm like, I need to go back and see my guys. My brothers are still in Iraq. I need to go see them. And he said, no, son, this is really the end of your career. If not, you're going to have to switch your MOS. And I said, I will die before you switch my MOS. So I'm going to get out. But the toughest question, though, was, what is my next purpose? What was I going to do? Sadly enough, I didn't figure that out in the hospital. And I went to work for a big defense contractor. And it was a great opportunity to learn. I saw many different things that led me to my first business venture. But I felt like I was a rat in a maze, going through cubicle alley every day for 2 years. I was on a 2-year contract. During the first 6 months of that contract, a lot of my guys had returned home. Sadly enough, divorced, on alcohol, on drugs, a few suicide calls, and actually I lost a few brothers due to suicide. I was the small business liaison officer for this big defense contractor, and I kept looking at the numbers and I kept analyzing it. Prior to the Army, I had a marketing degree that I graduated from San Jose State. I was analyzing these numbers, and the 2 columns that were lacking was the service disabled veteran column and the women-owned business column. And I was looking at their budget, and I'm like, why can't they find it? So I started to dig in a little bit as their SBLO, looking in there, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here. So one day I get a call, and I have my squad leader on the phone crying, and a couple other soldiers, and they're like, we don't know what to do, Tran. We thought we were gonna do 20 years, but after what happened to you, life has changed, things have changed. There's a lot of trouble. So I sit in here, and on my whole 15 months of recovery, I only thought about myself, to be honest with you. I didn't think about anyone else. I had to show my guys, hey, I need to recover, I need to be good, but I never once checked in. I never checked in with them mentally. I checked in with myself mentally, and I knew that I wasn't going to let my guys down, especially at the second chance of life. I wasn't going to let that down. And when I got that call, I said, I went home and talked to my wife. I said, you know what? I'm looking at this thing. There's a big opportunity for service disabled veteran firms. And I think we can really do something. Not only that, but I want to hire the guys from the 2nd Battalion, 22nd Infantry Regiment to come work for me. So I went ahead, and Bob, it was a funny story, because Bob told me when I left, he's like, hey, you need to go into business. And I said, I'm not going into business. I'm going into law enforcement. Well, I got denied because no one wanted to take me. I was a huge liability, especially with only one eye and a titanium rod. So while I worked for this defense contractor and then getting those phone calls, I made a phone call to Bob. I said, Bob, we were talking about construction. That was what our class was based on. And you sit here today and hear the wide spectrum of business opportunities that you guys are trying to pursue. I think that's fabulous, because construction was what we were looking into for veterans to easily transition. And you're going to hear me say the word transition many times throughout this presentation. And so I started a company with a $10,000 investment with 2 other business partners.
Keep in mind, HT could barely spell the word construction then.
I definitely was not, trust me, even if you gave me a hammer and nails today, I wouldn't even know what to do with it. But what I did know was, as an infantry sergeant, I put together teams, and I would direct my teams to do what I needed them to do. I took those same skills and I transitioned that over to the civilian world. The biggest problem that I think we have between the military and the civilian world is that it's a lifestyle change when we're leaving. And I don't think people understand that. You have a lot of these PR things where they say, hey, you know what, we're gonna hire 1,000 veterans this year. I always find that to be a scam, because my next follow-up question is, where are they after 6 months and where are they after a year? I guarantee you, I'm using a large number, 1,000, I guarantee you only maybe less than 10% stays with them, and then you calculate out the next follow-up question, that where are they at year 2, and you're down to maybe less than 1%. And I think that's a disservice to what we do, because people don't understand what we're transitioning through, right? And it's a lifestyle change. I'm not a fan of using the word PTSD, but that's my own political view on that, because I think it's a one big Band-Aid, but I think it's a transitional issue where people need to understand you. So I wanted to be a veteran. My purpose was to be a veteran-owned employer, to hire veterans and then help them get through their transition, because I think it's not just professionally. Anyone can be given a job, but then when you were in the military, you only had one job. Your job was to do your job and do it right. Everything at home was taken care of. And now you're back in the civilian world. Now you have bills, you have all these other things that you have to put together with your growing family, and that can be very stressful. And I think that leads to a whole lot of other things. So along this venture, during this transition, I didn't get any of my guys to come work for me. I ended up doing some veteran hiring initiative in the state of California. I ended up even sitting on an advisory board for the state of California on veteran hiring initiative. But during this 9.5 years, I owned a civil engineering firm, and I named it after my infantry company, Anvil Anvil, and then put the builders behind there. We went from a $10,000 investment to a $60 million company when I sold sold it 2 years ago. And I split, obviously, bought out my 33% and took a hiatus. But I want you to understand the word success is a self-perception of how you measure that success is. Because most of the time when we measure success here in society, we measure it by dollar value, right? Oh, this person made this, so they're successful. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're happy. Success has more of a meaning than just the capital dollars behind that. Well, I'll tell you why I sold my company, because that's the $1 million question. Why someone would say, hey, why did you leave? Remember, $60 million sounds a lot, but that's gross revenue. That doesn't take away all your liabilities, your expenses, all the things that you have. So you dwindles down to your net profit, right? And at the end of the net profit, you split that between 33%. I got my share. Not only that, but California. I mean, I don't know if any of you are from California. I was born and raised in California. California is a kind of a heavy tax state, so you really don't have a whole lot. The reason why I said success is self-perceived is that a lot of people will say, hey, you're CEO and president of a $60 million firm, why don't you own a home? What they're not asking you is, were you really happy in what you were doing? And I think success is driven by the passion of what you want to do, not based on the dollar value that you have. And so at one point, so I started my business in 2010, my son was born in 2012. I missed out on every monumental moment creating that business from ground up with my 2 other business partners. And 2017, my daughter was born, obviously Daddy's Princess. I came in between crossroads, and it was one of those midlife crises that came really early for me. And I had to ask myself, how do I want to be defined as a successful business person? As a successful CEO or as a successful great dad? And it took me 8 months to figure that out. It didn't take me that long, but I had to figure out this is the way I wanted to go about this, and I chose to be a great father. And so that big company now is a $100 million company based out of San Francisco that'll always have my history on it. But that wasn't what was important to me, was that I wanted to be a good dad, and so I moved on from that. So I spent the next 2 years with my daughter. During that time, I was trying to figure. I saw a lot of money going out. We went on vacation, obviously celebrated, took some good downtime. But then I said I needed to go. I am one of those people that don't sit still. I'm very restless, and I wanted to do something else. But the purpose of my mission for any of my business was to make sure I supported the veteran community, and in many aspects. I do motivational speaking now. I mentor business entrepreneurs. Back in California, I have 1 or 2 that I still keep in touch with now. I do certain things to help raise funds. I sit on 100 Entrepreneurs Board of Directors. I sit on another veteran organization called Sentinel Freedom. I'm on that board as well too, because it keeps me alive. Because at the end of the day, you got to remember something. We all went through our traumatic experience, but on the combat field, I couldn't take 1 cent when I was dying on the field, and they were airlifting me up to go back to the States to get emergency surgery. So money is not my #1 priority, but impact of an individual or impact of a community is the most important thing, because I think in the Lifeline, one of the questions before I enlisted, someone asked me, if you were to die today, and this I hadn't joined the military yet, if you were to die today, what would people say about you? People had some funny, and this is like 3 in the morning after coming home from the clubs, you know, I was 26. And I couldn't answer the question. Everyone else had an answer for it, and I didn't have a question. And I still use that question to drive my purpose. What are people going to say about me? How have I changed the world before I leave it again? And so I would say 6 months into my little hiatus, I ran into my old high school friend, my new business partner, Colin Reilly. Colin and I went to high school together. A contact had reached out to him and wanted to get a hold of me because they thought I still owned the company. They wanted to bring on a staffing company, and I said, well, I'm not meeting with that company. That's never going to happen. But Colin's like, what are you doing now since you're not with Anvil anymore? And I said, well, I'm looking to do something that it's going to be a smooth transition for me, where I don't have to do ground up anymore. And then I chose to go into the franchising world. And I think the franchising world is a very, very good transition, because someone's already done the groundwork, and now you're stepping into a structured environment, and now you can lead your own team, but you still have a set of structures that you can follow by, where I don't have to put a lot of brain power into like I did the first time around. Because the last time I started the company, I started in July of 2010, I didn't take a salary for 3 years. I literally just had to work the second job, you know, and then make sure budget it out, make sure, especially with lenders too. Oh boy, I love those lenders, because if you took money out of the company right when you started off, they didn't want to lend you any money. They thought you were going to pocket it yourself and go on a nice spending vacation. But on franchising, at least, you have some support, some backup, especially when it comes to financials. But there's a concept that there is already that's already been established. And you know, what's funny was how I got into the franchising world was, as a board member, I would go read the 100 Entrepreneur newsletter. There was this lady that was giving a presentation on franchising. She's standing in the corner right here, facing you. And I said, Bob, give me her number. I need to talk to her. I need to talk to her right now. And he was like, I thought you were on retirement. I'm like, I am, but I'm bored. So let's start the process now, right? Part of the planning process takes a very long time. And I had reached out to Faison, and we had, what, 12 months? A good year of conversation. And she introduced me to like 5 or 6 different concepts. Meanwhile, Colin and I were you know, having a conversation. Colin has a very strong entrepreneurial background, different from mine, and I thought we matched. But one of the things about business, though, and I want to make this very clear too, because it was in my podcast, is about relationship building. Someone asked about angel investors, right? You asked, and investors and stuff like that. Here's how the way, I mean, I had to learn this the hard way, because, you know, as an infantry sergeant, I'm like, hey, it's black and white, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to march down that way, I'm going to tell them I need this, you give me this, I'll return this, and boom. That's how the way I thought the business world worked. Apparently, that's not how the way it works. But it's all based off of personal relationship, right? And those personal relationships take a very long time. It's not like you can walk into a bank. And one of the things we did, you know, when we first set up our new venture, it's called DNW Ventures, which stands for my unit motto, deeds not words. We walked in and we're starting to establish those different types of avenues of relationships now, a foundation. Even if you're not going to need them right now, you're going to need them later. And I think that's one of the most important things that people don't talk about when they go into business, is that the people in this room, you never know if it's 6 months, 1 year, 10 years from now, if you're going to need to pick up that phone call and be like, hey, you have a resource that I need, can you make the introduction? Because that's how him and I reconnected. Was through someone needed well, someone wanted to get to me, and I'm pretty good at screening people, and so they went through him, and then we ended up having a conversation. And Colin was a perfect match for me, because his values aligned with me, what I wanted in life. Family first, the business, but we wanted to have fun while we were doing it. And so I brought Colin on, and I'm going to let Colin give you a little bit of his background here in a second. But DNW Ventures is now partnering up with a franchising concept called Mahana Fresh. It's a fresh eating healthy bowl concept that's new. And I chose this new concept because I'm about risk management. Every one of you sitting in this room who's military, even military spouses, you know how to do risk management. Because we do it every day when one of us is on our orders, on our mission, or taking care of the home. There's so many different types of risk, and you manage it on a daily basis, except when you go into the corporate world, they put this nice big old long title that says risk manager. What the hell is that, right? But you have a lot of skills that you can translate into the business world as an entrepreneur to have your business plan executed, but also a contingency plan to help back up for rainy days, because there's always going to be obstacles. If anyone ever sat and told you there's only less than 1% of the people that come up with a business plan and then hit a grand slam, and his name is Mark Zuckerberg. Sorry, everyone else, there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be growth, there's going to be setbacks, but those setbacks aren't failure. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I mentioned on the podcast, is that those setbacks is actually a learning lesson. It's a roadmap to what not to do to proceed to the next level. I'm very excited about our new venture, DNW, because we're using this franchising concept to build capital for our new firm. Eventually, what Colin and I are going to do, I'm trying to avoid it, but it doesn't seem like it's knocking on my door. We're going to probably start up another construction company, maybe a development company. We're going to buy out some acreage of land and develop it ourselves, because that's set revenue for us. That's our game plan. But my end game is that we want to be a venture capitalist. I want to be a veteran-owned capitalist for veterans like you guys, where I can sit one-on-one, build a relationship, help you build up and start up your company, and then eventually buy myself out, obviously with whatever profitability, and then walk away. Unlike other venture capitalists where they hang on to your company, that's no longer your company. And I don't want to do that to you, because I know what it's like when you have other investors that come in and they don't want to leave. So, that's the purpose of DNW Ventures, and I'm working with this new franchising concept. And if you guys are interested in it, I'd love to tell you a little more about it, because I think the franchising world is a world that people kind of get scared away, because it's like, well, I don't have the capital. It's also a good way to learn to be a business entrepreneur, because you have resources there that are already set that can help guide you through the process. Not only that, but in order for them to make money, you got to make money. So there you go. That's a handcuff right there that you don't get if you start on your own, which is something that took me 9.5 years to do on my own. But there were a lot of sleepless nights. I'm not saying that through a franchise you wouldn't have sleepless nights, but it's all about how the way you risk management that.
So my name's Colin Reilly. I done a few things in email. Colin at DNWVentures.net. We reconnected. I had been in car sales, loved it, except for the fact that it was the car business. Then I went into accounting, was a business consultant for about 40 different businesses in different industries. Enjoyed that, and then just had an opportunity to go into a big box insurance company called State Farm. Fantastic experience, but figured out that the way State Farm wanted me to run my business wasn't the way I wanted to run my business, and so we parted ways. Started as an independent contractor with an insurance broker, and that's how we reconnected, because originally I was just trying to sell him some insurance, but then realized I was like, oh, I do miss this guy. And we reconnected that way, stayed in contact throughout probably a couple years of that, and then got really tired of the brokerage and decided that I needed a break. Again, my buddy had called me to get in contact with him because he saw that he wasn't the CEO of his company anymore and was wondering what was going on, and so was I. So I called HT and was like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, I'm selling it. I'm kind of done with it. Want to try something else. We need to get together. So we got together and we decided we had to definitely, obviously, business is about making money, but at the same token, we wanted to have a philanthropical outlook that, if we're able to start a business and help everybody to a certain extent, but obviously focused much more on veterans for, what you guys have done made it feasible to have a business and do what we do here in America, that, if we're gonna help and put everything out there, that we definitely wanted to focus on veterans. It was one of those big things as far as my outlook was, I had a very philanthropic. I wanted to be a business owner so that I had the power to dictate my employees' lives in a better way. I wanted to make the decisions that probably most business people wouldn't make a decision because it might not be the best business decision, but if it was something that I had the power to dictate and I could do it. For instance, if there was a recession and I had a great employee, but at the end of the day, I had to take a pay cut. Most business owners wouldn't take a pay cut just to keep that employee. Well, I wanted to be in a position to do so. And that was the same position he had, the same outlook, the same, you know, we want to make money, we want to be successful, but we also want to help other people's lives and make them better. So Faizun had been talking to him, and we were able to get on the ground floor of a franchise, which gave us the opportunity to not only create jobs within our own, you know, restaurants that we opened, but it also gave us the opportunity to expose veterans to a position of ownership. If it was something that they decided that they liked, we also had, you know, limited restaurant experience, so it was also one of those selling points that if we could make it happen without being Michelin star chefs, then anybody really could make it happen, and use that as kind of an example. Our end-all be-all goal, and you guys are doing such a great job with the program that you're putting in place, but hopefully in the future, to the gentleman that was asking if you have, you know, VCs that you're not only getting interested in, we hope to use this as a stepping stone to where we're turning around and we can tell you, yes, you do, because we'll definitely meet with you, and we hopefully in a, you know, in a few years will be in a position to invest in things like that. And being in a position where I'm at, you don't find a lot of people that have the same outlook, that it's not all about money, it's about family. We're gonna spend 18 hours a day working together. We might as well enjoy each other's company. I might enjoy his a little bit more than he enjoys mine. But it's difficult to find like-minded people when you're going into business and it's not all about the money. So that was a very, very big part of our relationship, is we have the same outlook. And I think end all be all, hopefully when we're as successful as we want to be, we'll definitely be able to help others be just as successful. And when he was talking about the VC, we have an outlook to where it'd be more of, we're looking to be a loan. We're not looking to have percentages of people's businesses unless it's something that's beneficial to the person that we're doing business with.
Because it's your dream, and we want to help elevate that. Just so you know, this man over here has been my mentor for 11 years. Oh, well, even more than that, 12, 13 years, easily. I wouldn't be where I'm at if there wasn't a good soul standing in front of me telling me, hey, that believed in me more than I believed in myself. A few years ago, I won the Small Business of the Year through the ENR Awards, and I made it very clear to the Contractor of the Year during this award. I made the world know that you just need someone to believe in you, and you need to have a good support system along with you building this plan. You're not by yourself. This is a good resource group, but I was fortunate enough to have a Bob Nilsson stand behind me and say, go ahead and do this, you know, we'll get you where you want to go. Obviously, I had to put in the work, but I couldn't be more appreciative. So me coming here isn't, I mean, not to sell you something. I'm here because someone believed in me, and then I want to pass that along. That's like the pay it forward. That's how we are, you know, in our military lives. We always want to pay it forward. That's how it all got started when you signed those dotted papers anyways. You wanted to pay it forward. I'm going to leave you with this one last analogy, and then if there's questions, we'll answer questions. But in my podcast, I said, do not chase the money. And I referred to it as going down a dark alley. The first time you see money, you know, you go down that alley, you're able to go get that, walk down that alley and come back in. It's a small little alley, right? And then every single time you go down that alley and it gets darker and darker and longer, you're chasing that money, you're walking away from your passion. All you're doing is you're chasing the money, right? And you lose the purpose, the mission of why you're doing what you're doing, because, you know, your pockets are full of cash and you're like, hey, this is what I'm doing. But then at some point, I guarantee, I promise you this, because 9.5 years, I went through this great journey, but then I was really unhappy. It affected my marriage, it affected my fatherhood, it affected who I was angry, I spent a lot more time on the road, I was away from my family, and then the crossing road came. With the blessing of my daughter being born, I had to ask myself, what is it that I truly want in life? I was lucky to be able to walk away from that dark alley, because the purpose was always to serve you guys, serve the veteran community, but I I lost track of that at some point. Even though I was still doing the work, I started to put other things aside. And it's a simple reminder, it's a friendly reminder that stick to your mission. Because if you run your business right, the money will come no matter what. Don't chase after it, because there's gonna be one day you chase that money down that long, dark alley, and all you're gonna see is a speck of light down the road.